Hey listeners, it's Jana. Welcome back to Grief Out Loud. Imagine with me for a moment being 11. Now, imagine that your mother, a force that holds your entire family together, dies after a routine plastic surgery that you didn't even know she was having. Now imagine that after your mother dies, your family stops speaking about her, leaving you alone to try to figure out what happened, what to do, and how to feel. This disorienting world is the one that Susan Lieu found herself in after her mother, a Vietnamese refugee and successful nail salon business owner, died in 1996. Susan is a Vietnamese American author, playwright, performer, and storyteller. A daughter of nail salon workers, her debut memoir, The Manicurist Daughter, recounts Susan's quest to get to know her mother, avenge her death, and try with all of her might to get her family to open up about who her mother was and how her death affected them. Susan is also the co-host of the Model Minority Moms podcast and a board member for international NGO Asylum Access. She worked with Consumer Watchdog to pass a law to raise medical malpractice caps to protect low-income BIPOC women. Okay, here's our conversation. Susan, thanks for making time to be on Grief Out Loud. I have spent the last month furiously listening to the audiobook version of your book, The Manicurist Daughter, and also reading it at the same time. So I feel like I've been in conversation with you for a month already, but I'm really glad to have this one.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
How do you want to introduce yourself today?
Yeah, my name is Susan Liu. I'm a Vietnamese American multi-hyphenate storyteller. I'm a playwright, I'm a performer, and I'm also an author. And I focus on stories around family, beauty, and death.
And it's really hard to sum up someone in just a few sentences or even just a few moments, but I wanted listeners to have an opportunity to get to know your mother and wondering what you'd like to share about her today.
Yeah. So my mother is a Vietnamese refugee, and I lost her when I was 11 and she was 38. And what I want listeners to know is there's three things about this woman named Phương Ha, or to her customers, her nail salon customers, Jennifer Ha. First, she was a risk taker. We only came to America because she had an underground lottery operation in the Mekong Delta, won the lottery 3 times, convinced my father and took their 2 kiddos, and attempted to escape Vietnam 5 times by boat. And it's on the 6th time that they made it to a Malaysian refugee camp. So this woman is courageous. She is a risk taker. The second one, she immensely cares about family. And we came over to the Bay Area, and eventually my mom was hell bent on getting off of welfare, because once she could do that, then she could sponsor over her 3 sisters and her parents so that she could then build a nail salon empire. So there was this like, I got the golden ticket to come to America. I'm going to make sure I can sponsor over my family as soon as I can. And the other part is we are always going to do everything in the service of family. And any money we make, it's for the family or their family back home. So she was so dedicated to the family. But the last thing is the pillar of our family, the woman who had the 2 nail salons. We bought our first home in America in 8 years. Like, we did not have any money in Vietnam and certainly not in America. The third thing about my mom is that she was in the beauty industry, and she loved being beautiful, and she also loved plastic surgery.
As you were just describing those three really powerful components of your mom and her personality and her existence and kind of her experience on this planet, I was hearing and seeing so many parallels to you and your life and wondering if you felt that growing up, that determination, that risk taking, that family first kind of feeling, or is that something that you're still like, oh, do I have that?
Oh my God, it is something I grapple with every day. I have such high expectations of myself to the point where it gets debilitating, right? Because I feel disappointed in myself. I don't feel like I'm worthy enough. I feel like, and I'm like, where is this coming from? And as I'm describing her to you, I'm like, oh my God, it's the echo of my mother, right? Because nothing was ever enough. And she was so ambitious. She wanted so much for herself and everyone else. And it's like, I do that all the time to the point where I'm actually not enjoying things, but I think I'm always optimizing for the group. I'm always doing everything for the group. And it's like, actually, where's the space for me? Right. And where's the knowing for me that it's enough? We don't have to do anything more. And it's a struggle, an ongoing struggle that I have, and I think as a child of refugees, we are in survival mode. And it's crazy because it's like I wasn't in the Vietnam War. I was born in America. And yet I've inherited this tendency to feel the fight or flight, to feel that there's not enough and you got to get what you need, right? Because no one else is going to help you. And even though we are 50 years from the fall of Saigon, next year is the anniversary, I feel it pumping through my blood.
Yeah, to have that just almost like an unknown drive of safety and precarity. And how do I achieve enough to have stability and safety in my life? And to feel that like coming down the line in a way that's not even maybe conscious.
100%. That's intergenerational trauma right there.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the definition right there, right? Is like the grappling of the past in your present, in your present moment. Because you're like, what? Why am I so triggered right now? Like, I thought this was about the salad dressing. And you're like, no, this
No.
is like really deeper than that.
Can we go back a bit to 11-year-old Susan and
Oh God.
what, if you are open to it?
Yeah.
Wondering like, what did you know at the time about how your mother died and what that meant for you and for your family?
Yeah. Oh my God. Can I take you back to the last day? Last day, 6:30 a.m. We're both in the kitchen. Unusual time for both of us. I'm trying to sneak away, make my lunch, and go to volleyball tryouts, which she told me I can't do. She's leaving, preparing to go to an hour drive to go to San Francisco for her plastic surgery that I didn't know about. We come to a head in the kitchen where she's like, where are you going? I tell her, I confess. She says, you can't do that. We can't afford the uniforms. I'm telling her all my friends are going to be there. Like the only thing I want to be in like an all white school as a Vietnamese kid is normal, right? Like I just want to do what everyone else is doing. And she's like, no, you can't, you can't. And I like yell at her and I'm like, well, fine then. I hate you. And I slam the interior garage door. The entire frame shakes. Their car is pulling out. I hear the garage shutting down. I stomp off to school. I go, well, I'll show her. I come home after school, and my brother from college is in the driveway, and he's never there on a Friday. And I said, what are you doing here? And he says, Ma's in a coma. Pack your bags. We're going to San Francisco. Up until this point, I grew up in our family's nail salon. I watched soap operas. Okay, what do I know about comas? I know there's always a 1 in a million chance that the person's going to wake up, and after a few seasons later, they wake up. They always beat the odds, right? And I was like, okay, I don't even know why she's in a coma. And so when I arrive, I see my mother there, and the only thing they're saying in Vietnamese is mobile. She had a stomach surgery. She had a stomach surgery, and there's something related to the medicine. Maybe she's allergic to the medicine, and that's why she's here. And I said, okay. And she was 5 days in the coma, and then she flatlined, and then we buried her, and then we never talked about her ever again. And I remember the night before school, that Sunday night, my dad was like, "Oh, you don't have to go to school." And I said, "Well, why?" He's like, "Oh, just you can stay home." And I said, "Okay." And I just ate a lot of tortilla chips, watched some bad TV, The Price is Right during the day, And then finally, I went to the library and checked out a lot of books, read 1,000 pages so I can win a personal pizza prize certificate. And I was bored, and everyone was at work, and no one was home. My grandma, who's usually like ordering me around, is just laying in her bed. And I go back to school on that Monday, and the bully at school, Jessica, goes up to me and goes, "What's wrong with you? Your mom die or something?" And I am so embarrassed. Somehow I'm like, oh my God, does everyone know? How does everyone know? And I just start sprinting to the first place on that blacktop that feels comfortable and safe, which is the yard duty lady. I don't know her. She just smells like a lot of perfume, and I put my head into her boobs and I'm sobbing and I'm hyperventilating. And it is the first time anyone has hugged me since my mother has died. Because in general, my family actually doesn't touch each other. We don't hug each other. We don't pat each other on the back. We are Asian. We just don't, we're not expressive in that way. It's not, physical touch is not an okay thing. And it's a stranger that I go to for comfort. And it's the first time I'm able to cry after I found out my mom was in a coma. Because up until that point, I was like, I need to be strong for Ma. My aunt was like demanding me to touch my mom's hand in the coma and just keep begging for her to come back. And boy, did I feel guilty that I brought her here. Like I was such a disobedient, mean daughter that she doesn't want to come back to me because I'm ungrateful, because I told her I hated her. And that morning, that last morning with my mother and holding her in the coma and trying to beg her to come back, all of that I had been holding inside of me. And my family never knew my most shameful secret because one, we didn't talk about it. But two, my siblings only found out when they watched my one woman show and I reenacted it. Right. It was this grief and this shame that I've held on, and I've hid it, and it's eaten me and it's eaten at me because I've been alone in that grief. So we never went to grief counseling. We've never talked about it to this day. And for a long time, I felt like the black sheep because I wanted to even talk about it. Mental health is super stigmatized in Asian communities. And I think also my dad had so much PTSD from Vietnam War, being a boat person, and now being a widower of 4 kids. It was a really, really rough time.
I'm picturing 11-year-old Susan and what it would have been like to sit with other kids who were grieving, who also said, I called my dad a jerk the day before he died, or I told my mom I hated her forever before she got in the car and then she died. Because we hear these stories all the time. And just like what that would have been like for you to know you weren't the only one who had an experience like that.
Oh my gosh. I so wished somebody would have given me access to any form of services. Like this happened in 1996. The only thing on the internet was like the AOL home screen that didn't do much. Like I went to the Dougie website and I saw the resources for kids that kids could self-direct themselves and write a poem, do a craft, do all these things. And I can definitely imagine 11-year-old Susan going through every single activity until I finished all of them and then I could go to sleep. Like I so wished that I had resources then. Um, and the only way I was able to process any of this was achieve. And I got the best grades. I did a lot of community service. I did student government. And it was these adult mentors or the project coordinator, those types of people that were running the program that I would stay longer and help. Or eventually they'd give me a ride home. And once in a while, I would just sit in the car and I'd be crying in front of my house when they're trying to drop me off. And I'd be crying and crying and crying because I never felt like anyone heard me at home or validated my experiences. And so, yes, I wish I went to group. I wish I had group when I was a kid. And I think later on in life, about 7, 8 years later, when I go to college, there are adult mentors who are like, you really need to get help, or, you can't move forward in this running the summer program or doing whatever. And it was that forced me into therapy. And then I've done so many types of groups. I've done so many types of programs. I've done so many types of workshops because it's like, how do you fill this bottomless hole? And for 11-year-old Susan to be held in that moment by her family instead of a stranger, right? Or to be heard or to be validated, like, I think as an adult, have been yearning for so long to get that recognition of worthiness and validation, right? And it can come out in toxic ways. And so as an adult, I'm 39 now and I'm feeling like a really good adult. Like I feel like, oh, I'm a great adult now. Like trying to be more aware of like what's going on here and like what is this really about?
How did you come to grapple with that deep like shame and the secrecy around that last interaction you had with your mom, and has that shifted or transformed for you in this place of being the good adult that you are now at 39?
You know, I'm a full-time artist, and I never intended to tell my family tragedy on stage. I was actually going to do absurdist coffin art, like Andy Kaufman stuff. Like this was never the thing I intended to do. It came out. It came out unexpectedly during a solo performance class when the first day of class, they're like, tell a 5-minute story. And I was like, okay. I wanted to avenge my mother's death, so I went to look for her killer. Like up until that point, only my boyfriend knew these things. And it has been a deep shame with me. And it's manifested in funny ways. Like my mom passed away from a botched tummy tuck. So what do? I don't wash my face. I wear like really like frumpy clothing, upcycled, free bin, cool. Like I just swerved hard right on like beauty, right? Because it was like a total rejection, even though I didn't actually know what I was doing. Like I didn't connect the dots. My mother's death and beauty standards and me, and and also worthiness. What do I think I actually deserve? Am I allowed to feel proud of who I am? You know, it ate at me in that way without me even realizing it for years. And I would say it was only until I started going on stage and starting to workshop all of this and research new things and come to this understanding of who she even was and what even happened, that shame, me being able to admit to you what I told her on our last day, for me to explain that I've done a lot of diets over the years because I afterwards my dad and aunts told me that if I ate too much, then I would get fat and I would be ugly and then no one would ever love me and then I would die alone. So they told me that when I was 12, a few months after my mom died from a botched tummy tuck, right? And those types of words, they just kind of sink so deep in your psyche, right? And what's my reaction? Okay, I'm going to like diet a lot. I'm going to try to control. I'm going to try to be worthy and be enough. And it's this thing that has felt like two anvils on my shoulder my entire life. And to be able to do a solo show where I admit to you all of my secrets, right? AAA says we're only as sick as our secrets. And if I can admit that all to you and liberate that from me, and maybe you want to still be nice to me or be in a relationship, it doesn't matter. Now I feel like I'm clean. Like my side of the street is now clean. And that's what making art around my mother's death did for me is it liberated me to be like, I feel like I could move forward, right? Because I've admitted to you my worst secrets. And then I feel like I'm not hiding anymore. And when I felt like I didn't have to hide anymore, that's when I felt like I could be on my path.
I wanted to go back to that idea, like I'm going to avenge my mother's death. And I know you talk about that quite extensively in the book, but I wondered if you wanted to share just briefly with us about where that motivation started and how it shifted over time.
Yeah. So when my mother went in for plastic surgery, it was San Francisco, 1996. What she didn't know is her plastic surgeon was on probation, had 19 lawsuits against him, didn't have medical malpractice insurance, and he actively targeted the Vietnamese community as who he would operate on. He was white and male and in his 40s at the time, I believe. So she goes into the operation, and 2 hours into the operation, she loses oxygen to her brain. The human brain has permanent brain damage after 4 minutes of no oxygen. And he waited 14 minutes until the 911 call. So he was a negligent plastic surgeon. We tried to sue him. He didn't have malpractice insurance. My mother also signed some documents that I believe she didn't understand she was signing. We tried to go into arbitration, and he has never paid my family a dime. At the time, the person guiding my father, who has limited English, is my 19-year-old brother. And I'm 11 at the time. So I give you that context because I only learned all of this after someone in high school, when I was in ninth grade, he gave me an article in the San Francisco Chronicle and said, "Isn't this your mom?" And they had done interviews with my dad and my brother, and I did not even know this story. So there was so much secrecy that I didn't even know that was published, right? Like this is what we're operating in. So that's when I'm a child. This is when I'm 11. And when I go to business school, I'm at Yale School of Management. Now I'm about 30. My professor says, "The world is your oyster. You can do what you want in life." And I sit there and I go, my God, I somehow watched Legally Blonde, got inspired and applied to Harvard, got in. I started a chocolate company with my sister and eventually used that story to get into Yale. I am so educated. English is my native language. I have all of these things that my parents never had because my parents never even finished ninth grade in rural Mekong Delta. Isn't it time that I avenge my mother's death? I'm fully equipped to seek revenge because I'm educated. I have networks. I can make this man suffer. Because he lost his license for 2 years after we went to arbitration with him. And then he continued to practice for the rest of his life on probation, which made me very angry. What is the purpose of probation? What are penalties? How do we keep people accountable? Why is this system not protecting low-income people? So I was in business school and I said, all right, let me do a couple of things. One, I'm going to do a targeted Facebook campaign to him because I read on Reddit that a roommate was doing it to his roommate, and it freaked him out. I was like, great, I'm going to start scaring him. Second, I'm going to go buy a billboard by his clinic in Alameda, and I'm just going to start shaming him or letting him know something is up. Or I wanted a psychological game. And then I had journalist friends, and I was going to see if I could get an expose on him because there was plenty of victims that were still alive in the Bay Area where he had damaged their bodies and they were still paying for it. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. And then I'm going to build a class action lawsuit, and I'm going to get all these women together, and I'm going to make them really pay. That was my plan. I was in business school. It's 2014. It's spring. It's almost graduation. And I'm like, oh my God, is this guy I'm dating, are we gonna like, are we serious? Like, should I move across the country with him? I don't have a job offer yet. Should I go with him? Oh my God, I don't have a job offer. I should find a job. I'm going to have all these business school loans. So I get spun away from my grand plan because I have to like figure out my life. And when we finally settle in Seattle and I get a job, I'm like, all right, plan is back on. And I call my friend who went to Harvard Law, and we're talking on the phone one night because I'm trying to figure out this class action lawsuit. And I'm like, what can I really do? You know? And she was like, he's dead, Susan. And I was like, wait, what? I don't understand what you're saying. And she was like, well, I was just doing research and he died from Parkinson's. And this is his obituary. Like he had just died. He had just died. And I'm sitting in this tiny den where I have all these papers taped with blue tape on the walls. And I'm sitting there going like, oh my God, how do I have an enemy if my enemy is dead? Because I thought my dad didn't have a retirement, like we were pretty much near bankruptcy. We had two nail salons when my mom was alive. And then after she passed, like the family disbanded, and our original shop didn't do so well. Like we didn't have money. My dad does not have a retirement. People who do nails do not have a retirement. And I thought this was the thing that was going to actually heal my relationship with my dad. And I'd give him money and I'd be the hero and it'd be like such a clean ending. And I asked my girlfriend, I was like, well, can you sue dead people? And she was like, no. And that was a gut punch. That was a gut punch because I felt like I was going to seek justice for my mom. And then I couldn't.
Where did you go next with all of that energy that you had built up? And I'm picturing this like murder detective TV where they have all the pictures up in the tape and all of that.
Yeah. Well, I say in the book, and then I do what anyone does when they want to get distracted. I got married. And so I go on this journey to get married. And then my mother actually gets spirit channeled from my aunt at the wedding. And it freaks out a lot of my Korean in-laws, like what's happening. But spirit channeling, as you'll see in the book, is a part of my family. And my dad used to be a spirit channeler. And this is a very normal part of our lives. It was this reminder that the search should not be done. Right? Because I knew that when I was talking to my dad about the doctor, I could see him really distancing him from me. And there were emotional landmines that I kept stepping on because I wanted to know the truth and everyone was not having it. And so I was just like, I need to quit this. And when my aunt spirit channels my mom and then my mom starts coming to me in different ways, I'm going like, whoa, what else can I do? So then I research the plastic surgeon's kids. And I deduced that I should contact the kid that is a marriage and family therapist because I thought he'd be open to talking. So I figure out his work and home addresses. I call some of his workplaces. I figure out the correct address. You can find so much information on the internet. And I send these letters off. I send 3 letters off. 2 are returned to sender. 1 is not. And a week later, I get a phone call from his sister. And I see the last name on the phone and I'm like, oh my God, like this is the answer I've been waiting for because I thought that somehow if I connected with them, that's where my closure would come from. Like, I'm not going to try to hurt them. I just needed some closure. Like, did their family suffer as much as mine? Does she remember me? I don't know. I just felt like my mom was just like a forgotten poor person. So then I'm not in the right space to pick it up. I let it go to voicemail. I listen to the voicemail like 30 times. She wants to talk. I eventually text her back some times to talk. No answer. I call her back, leave a message. No answer. I'm going back to San Francisco. Does she want to meet up? No answer. And then I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? Did she get spooked? What happened? And finally, I call up the lawyers that we went to arbitration with. And I told her the story. And the lawyer who had been connected to our case was still there 20 years later. She goes, Susan, you gotta give them privacy. And I said, well, yeah, but I mean, she seemed like she was interested in talking. And she's like, I know, but you got to give them privacy. And I said, okay. But then the lawyer says, I have all the depositions from your family and the doctor, and I could share them with you. And I had never thought to ask her for that because after 7 years, California law firms can throw away things. And it's been 20 years. I said, yes, please. And that allowed me to read thousands of pages to understand the doctor and his background that he shares, and also my family and what they were feeling and how they described my mother because they've never told me. And so it was morphing into this thing where I started to realize, like, oh my God, this quest, my enemy, this is actually all really about my family and about closure with my family. And how do I get that if they don't let me in? That's a quintessential question of my memoir.
Yeah, that seemed to come through as almost like a break in the case, right? You get all these deposition files, you get to read all about them. And in it, there's this element of the quest becomes no longer about how do I figure out how my mother died, but how do I learn about who she was and how she lived? And if the people who know her the best aren't willing to talk to me, where do I go from there?
Or even a kid's question to know, how am I like her? Right? Earlier you were like, you're like your mother. And the honest truth is I never knew if I was, right? But in a way, it was me following all these breadcrumbs that should continue to lead me, and then and doing all the work and the writing and the performing, and then now I have even more information about my family. And then when I call up an auntie, I can ask more of a softball question now because I know a textured story that I can refer back to. And then I'm just layering and layering, and now I can see this like almost fully formed statue of my mother, right? But it took so long to fill in all those pieces and to have that layering. So it was me getting to know her actually helped me get to know myself.
One of my all-time favorite moments in the book, I think I laughed out loud while I was walking around my neighborhood and people are like, what's going on? But there's a moment where I think it was either through a spirit channeling or I don't remember, but your mom said to you, like, stop trying to avenge my death. It's not cute.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an excerpt from 140 pounds. So I used part of the plays that I wrote, and I was able to embed that into the work. And that was just some dialogue that I had made up for her because I'm sure she was just like, you're wasting your time, like get on with your life, right? But again, it was just so hard to do all those things. If I never took the journey to do all of this, I don't think I would have the peace that I have today, and also the resolve to keep doing my storytelling work around intergenerational healing.
What did you discover or learn about your mother through becoming a mother yourself?
So I remember in my second show, so 140 pounds is the fifth iteration, but the second iteration, I was talking to the audience, and I said, I think if my mom was still alive and I saw her on the street, I don't think I'd even want to be friends with her. I was so angry that she died from a elective cosmetic surgery. It was preventable. She just didn't have to do it. And yet she risked it all to do it. And she didn't know the danger she was walking into because maybe she wouldn't have done it then. But this one vain decision broke our family, completely broke our family. We had the American dream and then some, and it broke it all, crumbled all the way down to the ground. And There were years where I was angry at her. How could you be so selfish? And then after I became a mother, and mind you, my entire life I've had body image issues, given what my family has said about my body and my worthiness. After I had my child, and yes, my body changed a bit, I just started to understand how tiring motherhood is. Motherhood is being everything for everyone else except yourself. Being a mother, being a spouse, being a daughter to aging parents, trying to do birthday parties, trying to make things so great, working on your career, doing it all, leaning in. It was just so much that I barely remembered when I last showered, when I last changed my underwear. So then I got to a point where I started to get it. Started to get that an alternative story for my mother could be true of why she wanted plastic surgery. It's because she wanted something for herself. Because usually, as women, we are holding everything. And she wanted something for herself because she works 7 days a week. And on that Sunday, instead of coming in at 9:30, she came in at 11. Every single day. For everyone else, we were 13 people in a 4-bedroom house. She had 2 businesses. Can you imagine? We talk about self-care, we talk about mental health today, but this woman did not have time for self-care. This woman had no time for her. If I feel like I have no time, and my life is so much more privileged now. She definitely didn't have time for herself. And so now I can see a new narrative where she wanted something for herself. She sat in her manicurist chair all day. She had no time to exercise. And if anything, she was worried and stressed all the time, and there's no way to manage that. So, yeah, she wanted a shortcut. Yeah, she wanted a tummy tuck. And I don't think I ever got that until after I became a mom, right? To have a form of, I would dare admit, empathy. Because, yes, there are times when I'm very frustrated with my body. I do feel like mothers are invisible in this society, that we're less concerned. No, who's concerned about us, right? And so my mother saved a lot of money, $5,500, to get these procedures. Because she also, yes, she wanted to look better of whatever her standard of looking great was. But she wanted something for herself, for her this time, instead of always everyone else. And so now I get that as a mom. I don't think I'll ever take that risk myself. And I do a bit of advocacy work to help others to know to ask the right questions so they could possibly save their lives during a surgery. I help change laws so that we can change incentives around medical malpractice, right? To protect people. I do all of that because that makes me feel whole. But now I get why my mom thought getting plastic surgery would make her feel whole.
So if you saw your mom on the street today, you'd have a very different reaction than you thought you might have in your second show.
Yeah. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. And I'll go to, I don't know, I'll be in a different city, walk by in a restaurant, or I'll be at a mall, and I'll see a woman and I'll feel like energetically she walks like my mother, or I'll just do a double take sometimes because I wonder, what would she look like if she was alive? Is there a multiverse and she is still alive and she's living some other life? I mean, I do struggle when I see women with plastic surgery on their faces and all over their bodies. I struggle and I'm angry because it makes other women be in a rat race to be worthy. And I just want to scream from the rooftops, it's not worth it. Because I still read stories of mothers of children dying from plastic surgery.
Susan, as we come sort of to the end of our time for this conversation, what are you teaching or what do you want to teach your child about your mother?
She comes from a place called Vietnam, and you're Vietnamese too. And she was courageous, and she was kind, and she cared so much about the family. And we honor her. We honor her on our birthdays, and at Lunar New Year, we light incense and we talk to her. And you know what? She's always guiding us. So when you feel scared, when you need help, we can ask her for it. So let me show you how to light incense, and let me show you how to talk to her, and let me show you how to bow to her and offer her food. And she is with us, and she is guiding us.
And my sense is that's what you teach yourself too about your
I
mom.
gotta keep reminding myself because boy, do I, even though I talk about her all the time, I can I can go back to that 11-year-old Susan and feel really abandoned and really alone. Man, is that a comfortable place, right? Because it's a familiar place and it's a place that doesn't serve me. But when I get triggered, I go there and then I forget to ask for her help. I will say all the times that right before I go to bed, I actually hold on to my belly fat because I think it's important to build a relationship with something I've been resisting all my life. And I hold it and I say my gratitudes of the day. And I gotta say, every single time I do make a point to talk to her, if I'm confused about a decision, if I'm worried about a launch, whatever is happening, I do wake up feeling calm. And so much of me always wants to see her in dreams and have her talk to me. Usually my sister gets her in dreams more. But I do have to say that when I can regulate the nervous system and not keep chasing that fear, right? That narrative. And if I can just really get quiet and allow mom to help me, I do feel strong and I do feel at ease. And maybe perhaps the world is more peaceful, more peaceful about life, about what is happening and to actually savor what is happening in life instead of being chronically terrified that there isn't enough, no other opportunities are going to come. Everything is going, to the gutter. And I just feel like when I am intentional, when I can remember her, when I can have faith, that my mental experience is not the only experience, right? And actually, the physical experience is not the only physical experience because there is a spiritual experience. There is another dimension that we cannot see at play. And can I trust that? Can I trust that? Because if you read my book, there are so many moments that the signs could not be more clear, right? What else must I experience to believe that our loved ones are always there? It's an ongoing journey that I'm on. I wish I could lie to you and say, like, oh, my mother's always with me and she is the best, because I forget when I feel small and when I feel scared, I forget. But it's in those times that I remember that I feel whole again and remember that my body is my mother's DNA and my body is her last gift to me. So that means I carry her all the time and she carries me.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on how so much of the quest, to avenge your mother's death or to get your family to talk to you about your mother and share her with you kind of led you into this place, maybe not so willingly, of like you getting to know her.
Yeah. She was a baddie, And I'm like, I'm a baddie too. Yeah, she was a hustler. And I'm a hustler too. And she was devoted to her family. And I am too, right? Because part of the issue with grief is like everyone grieves differently. And so for me, this big journey has how do I love my family and love myself? Because usually I just do what they tell me to do and I don't do anything for me, right? Because it and I go into the patterns of what our family has always behaved like, and it doesn't serve me. So why am I still doing it? Right. And so this journey around grief of getting to know my mother and having closure around that of her death, it has been lonely. And I think I finally grew up after I had a kid. When I stopped pointing my finger at them, going, why won't you tell me? You're withholding this from me. You're trying to make me feel bad. It's actually your problem, not mine. When I could finally just pull my finger back and just really point it at myself and go, well, Susan, given that they're not going to talk, what do I need for me to feel whole, to have closure, to have peace? What does that really look like? And what that looked like was the play and the book. And so I did it, even though they were like, "What? I don't understand why you're doing this." And I'm like, guys, I don't. All you have to do is have one conversation with me. That's it. And since you have not, I am going to do this because this is what's going to make me feel whole. This is what's going to not have me live in the past anymore. This is what's going to free me. I need to write my unspoken. I need to release the shame. I need to name that shame. So I bless you. I will come back for Thanksgiving, but now I've got to go do what I need to do for me.
And speaking of the things you have done for you and have so generously shared with us, what's next in terms of like I know the Manicurist Daughter is out, listeners. You can get that everywhere. You can listen to it. You can read it. You should do that. You mentioned there's another iteration of your play. Like what should listeners be kind of have on their radar for how to stay connected with you?
Yeah, I think the best way is my Instagram at Susan Lieu, Lieu, and subscribing to my newsletter on my website, susanlieu.me. I have a podcast called Model Minority Moms where we're processing what it's like to be everything for everyone else but yourself. I am in the middle of a creative journey right now where I see my future in film and TV. And yet I know very little, I don't know that many people in Hollywood, right? And so there's things that I'm writing and doing. I'm Miss Susan on a local kids TV show called Look, Listen, and Learn because I want my kiddo to see BIPOC people as stars. And because I think representation matters so much and starts so young. So I'm working on that. And I've got a couple of other projects in the works. They're little babies right now. They're like so new. Like I'm like, just spoon feeding them applesauce right now. Like I don't it's a for a creative and this happens every time in my process. Like I am so scared. Like I don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to work out? Is this worth my time? Da, 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 da. So there's a lot of that happening right now. And I'm thinking about video, film and TV. So I'll put that right there. I'm also getting into public speaking right now. And so I love talking about intergenerational healing and how messy and complicated it is. So I work with the Macmillan Speakers Bureau and I get to fly around the country and get to tell my story and talk about how we can have that liberation, talk about how we can heal our own inner child and our belly fat, right? And so I'm very excited about that because I love being with people and I love being on stage. So that's all to say. Things are germinating. I'm spoon feeding applesauce. Hit me up on my newsletter and Instagram and things will unfold.
So stay tuned, listeners, and definitely go check out The Manicurist's Daughter, Susan's book. Susan, thank you for taking time to speak with me, with our listeners, for sharing your story, and for just the work you're doing to ensure that no other 11-year-old Susan feels so alone in their grief the way you did. Really grateful.
Oh, yes. I mean, if there are any teens out there that are struggling, give them my book. Like I write it in a very lowbrow way. Like I was like, I just try. I mean, that's because that's how I talk, I think. But it's more like I wrote that book for me. I wrote that book for 11-year-old me because there was so much shame in the family and because it was so silent and I felt so alone. So please, like this, I hope I do know that the book is being used as a form of bibliotherapy right now in a facility in Northern California where a child and their refugee parent are both reading excerpts and then discussing what's going on and then writing their own narratives, which is beautiful. It's being taught in colleges and high schools. So I'm very overjoyed. And I hope that more people who need to read it, who need a laugh about grief, who need a cry about grief, happy crying and sad crying about grief, because that's the duality of grief, right? It's very, very painful. And yet there's something so beautiful about losing someone important to you and you love them so much and you remember them and that it pains you. But that relationship itself, the essence of that relationship was something you cared about. That's beautiful.
And the permission to continue that relationship.
That's right.
Well, thank you again, Susan, for your time and for your work.
100%. I'm here for you.
And listeners, I say this each and every single time to you, but thank you for tuning in, for making the show mean something, for sharing episodes with people who you think might be interested in what we are talking about. If you want to reach out to me, I'd love to hear from you. My email is griefoutloud@dougy.org. It's dougy.org. It's also our website where you can find information about our local programming, the resources and activities that Susan mentioned that are free to download, and each and every episode of Grief Out Loud. If you are a listener, we'd love if you could head to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and give us a rating and a review. It helps people find the show. Excited as always to share, the podcast is sponsored in part by the Chester Stephan Endowment Fund. Thanks again for listening. We hope you'll join us again next time.